The lake ranger only approached when he saw the third tilapia coming out of the water in less than 5 minutes, using the same white stick bait everyone else was using. The detail he didn't notice at first was that before each cast, I quickly ran the lure over a slightly crooked candle inside a glass jar, which looked more like something my grandmother would use than modern fishing gear. While the guys with expensive sprays in their bags barely felt the touch, my rod wouldn't stay still, and it wasn't luck. In 2 hours, I counted 53 fish in my bucket, in a public lake in the interior of Texas, next to guys with catalog equipment. I'll tell you what kind of candle it was, why it works so well for black bass, crappie, and even bluegill, and what I did to almost get kicked out of the lake after that absurd difference in weight. If this is your first time here, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any secrets the industry tries to hide. That day started out pretty simple. A small weekend tournament, a small lake, high fishing pressure, those rule signs everywhere, and an official patrolling in an electric boat. A typical U.S. lake always full of weekend fishermen. On the left bank, 3 guys with kayaks, vests full of brand-name bait, spraying attractant on everything they threw into the water. On the right, 2 local gentlemen, thin line, worms, calm fishing. I went into the middle of the chaos with a very simple box, 2 rods, a jar with melted candle wax mixed with kitchen smell, and a plan that cost less than $3 to put together. In the first 20 minutes, the score was ridiculous. 11 fish for me, 2 for the rest of the entire bank. At one point, a bass came out, I took the bait, dipped it again in the candle wax from the jar, and on the next cast, a crappie took the bait in the same spot. The guys started giving me strange looks, whispering. One even asked if I was using worms hidden inside the plastic. The truth is, this trick didn't originate in a forum. It comes from an old story about a river dweller in Alabama who kept a kitchen candle filled with fish fat and spices to flavor his dough bait. His son took the same idea to bass fishing lakes, adjusted the ingredients, and today there's a whole group of discreet anglers using it in small tournaments. It got to a point where the situation became awkward. The kayakers, with sonar and everything, had 5 fish in total, while my bucket already had 30, all within the permitted size limits. The jokes started, "Is that within the rules?" and "Let me take a closer look at that bait." When the inspector came by, he struck up a conversation, asked to see the box, looked at the hook, looked at the type of plastic, and saw that everything was within the lake's regulations. But the candle in the glass jar caught his attention. "What's that?" I replied immediately. "Homemade candle scent, a mixture of fat, garlic, and a little bit of sardine, just to mask the smell of my hands and make the plastic more interesting." He frowned, sniffed, made a face, and said that it could be considered a discharge of foreign substance into the water, because it was impossible to know what was inside, and that the lake regulations didn't mention that type of product. The atmosphere became tense. Meanwhile, a man on the riverbank whispered that his father used to make something similar with beef tallow and seasoning to catch catfish in the Mississippi, a story I'd already heard from another river dweller in Louisiana. This kind of knowledge is passed down from grandfather to father, from father to son, but it rarely becomes a video or a shelf product. The elders always trusted the right smell and subtle differences in texture much more than pretty packaging. Today, we live surrounded by synthetic sprays, scented gels, shrimp flavor X1, X2, X3, with pretty English labels and hefty prices. Back at the lake, almost everyone was using something like that. A little pot for $8 or $10, spray it, wait for a miracle. But many of these formulas are based on very thick oil, which doesn't mix well with water and creates a film that stays more on the surface or on the bait than actually spreading. The smell might mask the odor of sunscreen and gasoline, but it doesn't interact well with the fish's sensory system like the compounds they're used to finding when injured prey swims by. In several freshwater species, such as catfish and other bottom-dwelling fish, scientists have measured how much certain amino acids present in pieces of fish, shrimp, and even blood are perceived in minimal concentrations, something like 1 part per million in the water. It's almost as if the fish read the menu with their nose. We are living in the craziest era of fishing. There has never been so much technology, so much information thrown onto the internet, and yet a lot of fishermen continue to return home with few catches, frustrated, without understanding why some guys always fill their live wells while they just take pictures of the river. What if the very strategies that even the most experienced anglers don't share publicly are what's missing from your fishing trips? Those invisible adjustments to water reading, spot selection, bait type, and decision-making that don't appear in YouTube videos, but completely change the outcome in practice. That's why the ebook High Level Fishing was created. A practical, straightforward guide where you discover the pillars that truly make a difference in fishing and learn to apply, step by step, the same strategies that the most successful anglers use in the water. This isn't just another superficial resource repeating obvious tips. Here you'll truly understand how to think like a high-level fisherman, how to read the environment, choose your spots better, adjust your techniques, and prepare intelligently for each outing, greatly increasing your chances of catching more fish in less time. Download now using the link pinned in the first comment. Please note, this special offer from $19.90 to just $14.92 is available for a limited time only and may be discontinued at any time. What almost took me out of the lake that day was a simple kitchen candle melted with canned sardine oil and a little crushed garlic, rubbed directly onto the plastic before each cast. It sounds crazy when you say it fast, but science backs it up. In tests with various species, fish show enormous sensitivity to amino acids and soluble compounds that leach from pieces of real food. And this includes fish oils that mix well with water and seasonings that resemble natural food. In Bass Lakes in the USA, many people have already noticed in practice that attractants based more on real food make the fish hold the bait in their mouths longer, which greatly increases the chance of a firm hook set. When you think about how fish perceive the world, you can understand why a wrong sail can turn into a successful trick. They don't rely solely on sight. A large part of their search for food involves their extremely sensitive sense of smell, capable of identifying minuscule traces of prey scent that we don't even notice. In freshwater fish studied in the laboratory, many amino acids released by pieces of meat, blood, or shrimp cause the olfactory system to fire at high levels, triggering a hunting response. Furthermore, their bodies have the famous lateral line, a set of sensors that detects vibrations, changes in water flow, and even the trail a small fish leaves behind when swimming away. In short, the fish smells through the water and feels through its body. When you put something on the bait that releases microparticles of real food, that trail makes sense to them. That's why I put together my homemade candle fishing setup for the American lake. Write this down because it's simple. You'll need half a white kitchen candle without a strong scent. It can be left over from an emergency candle. 2 tablespoons of oil from canned sardines. The oil from the can itself, don't throw it away. 1 well-crushed clove of garlic, and 1 teaspoon of coarse, lightly crushed salt. This yields enough for several days of fishing, costing pennies, literally less than 10 reais if you convert it, or less than $2 buying everything at a neighborhood market in the USA. The assembly method is straightforward. Step 1. Melt the half candle in a double boiler in a sturdy glass jar, just until it becomes liquid, without boiling. Step 2. Turn off the heat, let it cool slightly, and mix in the sardine oil, crushed garlic and salt, stirring with a toothpick until everything is well distributed. Step 3. Let this mixture harden again inside the jar with the lid on to become a brick of aromatic fishing candle. Step 4. At the edge of the lake, simply open the jar, rub the soft bait, spinnerbait, jig, or even the bottom sinker on the surface of this candle and cast. The secret is not to overdo it. A thin layer, renewed every 10-15 casts, is enough. If you put too much, the bait becomes heavy and strange, and you lose its swimming action. To preserve it, seal it well and store it in the refrigerator when you get home. If you want to keep it for months, keeping it in the freezer maintains the strong smell without spoiling quickly. If you want to boost it, you can add a crushed salmon oil or fish oil capsule to the still warm mixture to bring a very strong fishy smell that gradually releases into the water. Or a tiny pinch of ground black pepper, which helps create a different trail of flavor, making some fish more curious and causing them to bite again even after missing the attack. Now, that tense moment with the inspector has a lot to do with the aspect that stores never properly explain. They don't sell that kind of candle made with leftover sardines and cooking seasoning because it's too cheap, easy to copy, and doesn't generate consistent profit. It's much more interesting for the market to sell you small bottles with eye-catching labels, promising a secret formula, and charging $8, $12, sometimes $20 for a liquid that, in many cases, is basically oil with a synthetic fish aroma. In comparison, this homemade candle trick uses a natural, cheap ingredient that you can buy at any supermarket. And since it doesn't come with a nice registration, barcode, or technical data sheet, in some more controlled lakes, the inspector might object, saying it's an unidentified substance. That's why there was so much trouble the day I caught 53 fish, while the rest barely numbered more than 10. To use it without headaches, just be smart. Use a small amount, always on the bait, never throwing a piece of paraffin directly into the water. Apply only a thin layer before each cast. Best time? Early morning and late afternoon, when the fish are circling near shallow structures and the smell can attract attention even with more people fishing. In U.S. lakes, this type of trick usually works very well for largemouth bass, crappie, and bluegill, especially in slightly murky water, where vision is weaker and smell is stronger. A common mistake that ruins everything: mixing strong perfume, soap, and sunscreen on your hands, and then applying it directly to the bait without washing. Then the fish smells the human scent and becomes suspicious. Wash your hands, apply the homemade candle, and let it do its job silently. Click now, secure your access to high-level fishing, and let these strategies start transforming your next fishing trips. The link is in the first pinned comment. When you return from the water applying what you've learned, come back here and comment, "I caught more." That will be your commitment to your evolution in fishing. And perhaps it's exactly the step that separates the stories you hear from the stories you'll start telling. Imagine your next fishing trip. While others spend $120 on imported, off-the-shelf spray, you use half a kitchen candle with sardine oil that cost next to nothing. In just a few hours at the lake, your fish count starts to climb, one after another, without a fuss, without any fuss. Your friends will ask for the secret. You decide whether to tell them. The ancients knew that fish respond to the smell of real food long before the first bait package arrived in stores. They were the ones who tested it firsthand, in the river, in the remote lake, on the wooden pier. What happens today is that the industry tries to push expensive, ready-made solutions, while a lot of simple tricks end up forgotten. The idea here is precisely to rescue these practices and put the control of your fishing back in your hands. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next video.